Hey everybody, welcome. It's now 8:30, so I'll just wait for our speaker, David Hallwaters, to come online. There he is. Good morning, David. Oh, you're on mute, David.
Sorry, hi, yes. No, hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone.
Morning. Okay, so just some housekeeping, everybody. Yes, as I said before, please all keep yourselves on mute so we've got a nice clear audio throughout the presentation. For questions, because there will be time for questions at the end, if you could pop them in the chat, and what I'll do is I'll monitor them and then we can go through them all at the end. So I can see lots of people still sort of pouring in. So what I'll do, David, if you don't mind, is if we start in just 1 minute, just so that we can just hopefully get everyone in as much as possible.
Okay.
There we go. A few more trickling in. Good morning, everyone. Okay, well, I say let's get going. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the Wellbeing Talk this morning. It's a real pleasure to be able to host David Hallwaters. He is, lots of people still joining. Okay, well, welcome, everyone. Hope you don't mind that I'm already halfway through the spiel, but yeah, this morning we are hosting David Hallwaters. He is a leading inclusion and wellbeing consultant who has claimed several awards for his commitment to ensuring not only a more inclusive workplace, but also a more inclusive future for all. He's an associate consultant. Oh gosh, I've lost my place. I'm so sorry. He's an associate consultant and trainer for the Employers Network for Equality and Inclusion and Embed Inclusion. He was also awarded the Vodafone World of Difference Award for his pioneering work and is now a popular choice as a speaker for corporate and public events, discussing his expertise on neurodiversity, conscious inclusion, inclusive leadership and recruitment, inclusive language, disability, confident practice and allyship and LGBTQ+ issues. So it's a real honor to have you here, David. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks so much. Yeah, as Rebecca said, I'm David. I'm here because I believe we all have the right in life to achieve our full potential, whether that's personally or professionally or both, actually. This informal interactive webinar is an opportunity for us to further enhance our awareness of what it is to be LGBTQ plus in the world today, that journey towards equality and the continuing need for allies at work and beyond the workplace. When we hold events like this, we've such a great opportunity to enhance our collective understanding and open up a dialogue on how we can best interact with our colleagues and those beyond the workplace so that we can enhance their belonging and well-being. As I say, it's very relaxed, very informal. It's an interactive session. Your voice, your input are vital today. It's quite early in the morning. I hope you're wide awake, but I'm certainly doing my best to wake you up if you're not. Share your thoughts in the chat box throughout. Put your questions in for the end. We will make sure there's plenty time for any questions that you have. But do interact as much as you can with the quizzes, with the case studies and so on. Firstly, then, find the chat box. And I'd like to know, how are you genuinely feeling at this unearthly hour of 8:34 a.m. How are you feeling? Use a GIF, use a meme, an emoji, use words in the chat box, and I will do the same. Where it says type a message, you can then choose a GIF if you would like, or a meme, or whatever else. I am going to choose this one. Often is the case, no matter what emotion I put in, it comes up with Homer Simpson for some reason. Excellent. Dave, good name, Dave. Rachel, hi, Rachel. Daniel, lovely. Cool, fabulous. Excellent, excellent. Oh, how nice. Yes, there is some sunshine. Oh, we need it, don't we? The summer is just starting. Hopefully, let's hope. Keep those coming in. Keep those coming in. You'll need the chat box open for the next activity. These are great. Good morning to Grace Ellis. Lovely. Lots of emojis. Okay, let's carry on in the chat box. I wonder, in a range of contexts, when you felt the sense of belonging, what feelings come to mind? Put some words in the chat there. How do you feel when you belong within your family, I hope, friendship groups, when you're at school, university, the workplace? How does that feel when you have a sense of belonging? We're still getting the how you're feeling emotions coming in, which is great. Very secure, content, can be myself, relaxed, loved, fulfilled, safe, content, valued, content. Oh, love, accepted. Don't you get a warm feeling when we're describing that? How lovely, how lovely. Yes, secure and safe come up quite a lot, don't they? Peaceful and energized. Is that that's maybe how you're feeling today? But also, yes, when we belong, we feel that as well. And oh, no, oh, yes, lovely, lovely picture from Mark there. Um, allow me to be me. I think that's really powerful. Absolutely, absolutely. We're not here to be cheerful. I'm going to bring you up to bring you down in the same range of contexts, however. Considering family, for some, it may be the case that they've been excluded from family. What about friendship groups on occasion? When you were at school, were you the loner at school, didn't feel included, or have a friendship group, school, college, university? How does that feel? Same again in the chat box. How does that feel? Isolated, sad, lonely, alone. I'm reading these out as we're recording today, so there will be people watching afterwards. Disappointed, frustrating, loss of confidence. Well, that's powerful, yes. Sad, awkward. There is that awkwardness and lonely, invisible, anxious, sad again, different. You do feel different. You do feel othered, don't you, Dean? Absolutely. Anxious. Wow, yes. I mean that really shifts the mood, I feel, just by expressing those emotions that we feel on those occasions. So the reason we've done that is really to, yeah, absolutely. I won't read that one out. So we feel a sense of being on the outside. We feel othered. We feel different. We feel, as we say, we don't belong. The same can be the case in the workplace. Throughout our lives, we'll experience inclusion and exclusion, hopefully more of the former, and that might well be within our family, our school environment, and so on. Insider outsider dynamics exists within practically every organization. No matter how hard we try for it to be inclusive, there will be others in our organization who don't feel that same level of inclusion and belonging, particularly when we consider the insider group, who are the dominant group, who influence the culture, where perhaps there may be displays of micro behaviors, microaggressions, or subtle acts of exclusion that result in an inequitable treatment of staff. We can be on the inside one moment, then find ourselves on the outside. And that certainly has been my experience in the workplace as a teacher. I worked previously as a teacher during a time when there was still a great deal of homophobia amongst staff and senior leaders, which I'll go into a little bit now. Briefly, this is my personal experience. I was a teenager in the 80s, believe it or not. I know you believe it, just look at me. I was born in 1970, and it was a time before Instagram filters. The picture there is me as a teenager in the late 80s. Yeah, it was a time before I knew how to clean my house, as you can see, and I lived on pot noodles. If you zoom in, you'll see. I wasn't always confident. I wasn't always self-assured. I don't know that I've ever really gotten to that stage, you know. We all have that imposter syndrome. I would say my story, perhaps like yours, and that of many of your colleagues, is that journey we have in life from self-doubt to self-belief, hopefully arriving at that point. I was an expert self-isolator in my teenage years. I was a maudlin, introverted, introspective teenager, dressed in black or grey. Still do, actually, no shame. And at this time, LGBTQ plus people were portrayed as, and I make no apology for emotive language, but we were portrayed as predatory, perverted, plague carriers in the press and in the propaganda produced by our government at that time. Within television dramas, within soaps, within movies, we were either villains or victims or both, never the victor or afforded the happy ending. With the outbreak of AIDS, HIV/AIDS, gay men in particular were vilified in the press. Stigmatization, persecution were basically legitimized. We were othered, dehumanized, treated as a source of humor, as subhuman, and somehow deserving of ridicule. All very heavy stuff, all very, very heavy stuff, but there is a reason for putting this into some sort of personal context as we go into other activities today. So add to that Section 28, which was brought in prohibiting the promotion, as if one can, of homosexuality by local authorities. This had a huge impact upon the regressive attitudes towards LGBT people at that time through its 15-year duration and beyond, with many of us still feeling the impact today. It had such a huge impact on our self-belief, self-esteem. So, by stating that traditional moral values were at risk if children were to be informed about LGBT matters, Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher, had publicly and politically gagged local authorities, particularly schools, and had placed such severe restrictions upon what they could teach, more importantly, upon whom they could guide and support. Now, I had gone through a career early on as a singer. I moved into teaching and was working as a teacher while Section 28 was still in place. I was surrounded often by senior leaders who felt that I had no place as a gay man to be in that environment, as if I were still to be a danger to children, which of course was not the case. But those stereotypes pervaded and still do in some people's minds. It was so damaging for LGBT people, this Section 28. They became more legitimate targets for verbal and physical abuse, and those mental scars are carried and they remain with so many today. There is, I would suggest, a resultant collective trauma experienced by LGBTQ plus people. It's yeah, thank you. I mean, it is sad, and I think it's important to put that into some sort of context, how the lived experiences, and we'll delve further into that in the session, how those lived experiences really, really impact on individuals, how they perceive themselves, their worth, their value, and what they can achieve in life. So, but we may feel everything is great now. We're in the 21st century, everything's fine, all people are treated equally. So why do we need things like Pride Month? Why do we need webinars like these to talk to colleagues there? Well, there have been, of course, significant advances in the rights afforded to LGBTQ plus people, but these have been hard fought for. They didn't just happen. And some of those dates which you're pointing out in the chat box, yes, they are so recent. These are in the 21st century that these legal advances listed came into force. Do they surprise you? Some people, yes, I'm sure. So despite all these achievements, there's still such a long way to go. Here in the UK, we are still criminalising homosexuality to an extent, or where in terms of the government are allowing so-called conversion therapy, which is an abusive, tortuous act in order to attempt to alter a person's sexuality or gender identity, a futile, let's say, practice of trying to alter a person's sexuality. That is still allowed in this country in 2024. And of course, we must consider the world that we inhabit. There are numerous countries where diversity, inclusivity, legislation, and society overall have not evolved. And we can't look the other way when there are still oppressed people across our world. So, with all that serious content, let's delve into a bit of a quiz, which means you'll need the chat box again. Your answers will be A, B, or C, or true or false, depending on the question. So, question number one, your answer in the chat box. A survey of 10,000 millennials, so those born between 1982 and 1996, showed that over A, 40%, B, 60%, or C, 80% said an employer's policy on diversity and inclusion is an important factor when deciding to work for them. So A, B, or C in the chat box. Interesting. So we're getting spread of answers. If you can psychically connect and spell the word ABBA, that will make my day. But we've got a real spread of answers there. I'll give you time, but not too much time, because I've got a lot of quiz questions for us to get through. I don't know if we got ABBA, but let's hope we did. Oh, more answers coming in. The answer is 80%. It'd be interesting to know your thoughts on why that might be the case. What is the different lived experiences people have who have grown up in that generation to perhaps older generations? What may be influencing them in terms of prioritizing diversity inclusion when in the workplace? Use the chat box and let's get some thoughts on that one. But let's carry on. Excuse me. According to the most recent official information available, around 1.7 million lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, and queer persons live in the United Kingdom. Is that true or false? 1.7 million. And of course, interestingly, when we think about official information, we do have to consider how open people feel they can be when revealing things with regards to sexuality and gender identity. So although, and that absolutely, so someone there in the chat box has said higher. So yes, I would say, although officially it is true, the figure is much higher. The United States figures are showing that younger generations, Gen Z, about 1/3 will identify as LGBTQ plus. 1/3 of the population of younger people are now identifying. It's estimated that between 100,000 and 250,000 persons are gender diverse. So that broad range of genders that we're beginning to learn more about. 100,000 and 250,000 are gender diverse. Good, good, good. I do put in trick questions, so you may be right to say false higher. Let's have a look at the answer. I don't want to rush too much. Make sure you've got time. Do shorthand. T or F will work for these answers. We'll know what you mean. T or F. Okay, let's have a look. It is false. It's estimated that between 250,000 and 500,000 persons are gender diverse in the UK. Next question. The most recent census asked, is the gender you identify with the same as your sex as registered at birth? A, 0.5%, B, 5%, or C, 15% answered no. The gender you identify the same as the sex registered at birth. Oh, we almost had ABBA there. I'm going to be really quick with these questions. I think it is 0.5. I'll just go slightly quicker, so my apologies. I want to make sure we get through all the various bits and pieces of activities today. So 0.5 answered no. Within this group, A, 480, B, 4,000, or C, 48,000 identified as a trans woman? I say thanks for playing along. I like to think of this like the chase, only more informative. It's like the gay version of the chase. Did we get ABBA yet? No, we didn't. You're letting me down. You're letting me down. Keep the answers coming in. Thank you for smiley emoji. 48,000 identified as a trans woman. Now, let's look at this next statistic. Within this group, A, 480, B, 4,000, or C, 48,000 identified as a trans man. Interesting. Oh, we're copying the first person's answer. I used to be a teacher, so I know when you're copying. Ah, wow. Okay. Lots of B's. So 4,000 as a trans man. We got a C from one person there. Oh, and another, and another. 48,000. So the same number. I do wonder why then the focus solely within the media, within government, is regarding trans women's identities when the numbers are equal to that of trans men within the UK. Wonder you may have some thoughts on that as well. Why is the focus solely on trans women? Within this group, 30,000 identified as non-binary. A, is it 180? B, 1,800? Or C, 18,000 wrote in a different gender identity? Going for B's and C's. I guess 180 sounds really low, doesn't it? Perhaps I need to change my numbers in that answer. But yeah, I've got to give you a chance of getting some points. So the answer for that one is 18,000 who wrote in a different gender identity. So according to the Metro Youth Chances report, a significant number of trans young people realised their gender identity at a young age, with 2 in 5 individuals identifying as trans by the age of 11, 15, or 18. We have a very informed group here today. The answer is 11, and some even younger than that, of course, when we become aware of who we are. 1 in 10, 3 in 10, or 7 in 10 trans young people have been subjected to death threats at school. 1 in 10, 3 in 10, 7 in 10. Oh, so we've got B's and C's, B's and C's. Actual death threats. What a depressing statistic. So 7 in 10. That comes from the charity Trans Actual. That statistic. Very, very sad and depressing. Shocking, yes. 7% of lesbian, gay, and bi students who aren't trans faced negative comments or conduct from university staff because they're LGBT. This percentage increased for trans students. This is university students. 12%, 28 or 36% face negative comments or conduct from university staff. Oh, I've given the answer and you're still putting your answers in. I'm so sorry. I've clicked too quickly. 36%. Again, very, very sad statistic. When we go to university, it's often a place where we feel we can begin to be ourselves more fully. I know certainly when I came to London from Scotland, I came to music college originally. And of course, it's the gayest place to be. I studied as an opera singer. And if you came out in music college, it was often you came out as heterosexual. I say that as a joke, but it's pretty much true. So it was a safe place, but that was the type of environment I was a student. But other people are not having that same experience. 21%, 31 or 51% of trans people have felt the need to hide their identity at work due to fear of discrimination. All going for the higher figure on this one. Don't want to sway your answers, but yeah, we got B's and C's now. B's and C's. I will get the answer. It is 51%. Yes, you're right to go for those higher numbers. 1 in 40, 1 in 20, 1 in 8 LGBT people have experienced some form of unequal treatment from healthcare staff because they're LGBT. Oh, thank you to whoever's leaving for a meeting. So 1 in 40, 1 in 20, 1 in 8 have faced unequal treatment from healthcare staff. E's and C's. Yeah. I think it's very interesting the way we answer those questions. We often may um, answer from our own perceptions of surely that can't be the case. 1 in 8 have experienced some form of unequal treatment due to, oh, I need to take my slide back so I can see what I'm doing. I wouldn't have necessarily thought that was the case myself until I experienced that fairly recently. I'd been bitten by a dog, very randomly bitten by, it was a very nice dog, but I was just over friendly and it managed to bite into my hand. So lots of people, including my mother, said, go get a tetanus shot. So I turned up at a walk-in centre, treated very nicely initially until handing over the form with the details on, and putting on that form next of kin being my husband. The receptionist glanced at the form and became very short and snappy with me, whilst being very gentle and lovely to others in the waiting room. I observed this for over an hour while I was waiting and not being seen, whilst others came and went, came and went. The place emptied, it filled, it emptied, it filled. For an hour I was there. I asked if I would be seen soon, and I was told to sit down. It was a matter of waiting. That was just after I'd heard the receptionist saying a very gentle tone to someone else, you'll be next. Don't worry, take a seat, just wait over there. I then was treated appallingly by the nurse who saw me. I won't go into too much detail because it was just a really awful, weird, uncomfortable situation, which meant I left the surgery without having any treatment done. And I don't look for homophobia. I honestly don't. But for those who've experienced any kind of discrimination in their life, when it happens, you recognize it because it is a familiar experience, regardless of your characteristics. It may be based on your race, your gender, your sex, having a disability. You know, if you've experienced it, what it is. So 5% have avoided treatment for fear of discrimination because they're LGBT. Do you think that's true or false? 5% have avoided treatment. My story might well have swayed your answer there. Let's see what the answer is. The answer is false. 14% have avoided treatment. Now, consider if it weren't just a dog bite, which I think did in fact lead to an infection, because I didn't get the treatment needed. Consider it was something more serious. Consider we've noticed something about ourselves change, our body changing, and we need to go get treatment, but don't seek that treatment for fear of that discrimination. What the implications might be. What percentage of trans people report being impacted by transphobia when accessing general health services? 20%, 40 or 70? Let's have a look. The answer is 70%. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. I'm really sorry. Next one. Gallup's hate crime report found that 1/3 or 2/3 of LGBT people have experienced anti-LGBT plus violence or abuse. Make sure you've got time. 2/3, 2/3. And these are the types of abuse they've experienced. Verbal abuse, 9 in 10. Physical violence, 3 in 10. 2 in 10. Sexual violence, and so on. And this also should take into account that only 1 in 8 people surveyed had reported the most recent incident. So this is underreported. 1 in 5, 2 in 5, or 3 in 5 trans people have experienced a hate crime or incident because of a response to their gender identity. The wording of that is very precise, not because of their gender identity, but because of a response to it. The onus is on the person committing the offence, not on the victim. B's and C's. It is 2 in 5, so 41%. Next, criminal justice. The Ministry of Justice reports that trans prisoners make up an estimated 0.16%, 16%, or 36% of the UK prison population. A's and B's, A's and B's. Consider what percentage of the population are trans to begin with. And then this is a bit of a maths test. This is certainly going to get your brains working this morning. So the answer is 0.16% of the UK prison population. Does that not make us question why there is such a focus on criminality amongst trans people, when the statistics don't bear that out in any reality at all? The majority of trans individuals express happiness with their decision to transition, and an overwhelming 99% have no regrets about undergoing gender confirmation surgeries. Is that true or false? Mixture of answers, mixture, mostly saying true, mostly saying true. It is, in fact, true. There is often a focus on certain individuals who might speak up about regretting transition, and those voices have been amplified in the media, which gives an impression to the wider public that perhaps people are mistakenly going through the medical transition. Last question is, in 2024, so this year, ILGA, the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association of Europe, which produces a yearly rainbow map of the 49 countries across Europe, reported that the UK was placed at 5th, 9th or 15th with regard to the rights and the freedoms of LGBTQI citizens. So what place do we hold out of 49 countries? I don't know if we've actually spelled ABBA yet, which is hugely disappointing because this was your last opportunity. If anyone wants to just type in ABBA, that would bring me joy. Ah, I think we got it. I think we got it. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. So we are 15th. Last year we were 17th. I have literally no idea why we've gone up. I don't know what has changed that we've gone up, because we'll talk in a moment about and in what ways we are still lagging behind other countries. Did any of those answers surprise you, I wonder? Also, what are your thoughts on why it's important? Yeah, probably others have got worse. There we go. Thank you. That makes more sense. That makes more sense. Why is it important to be aware of issues, experiences. We've looked at healthcare, school, university, the workplace. We've looked at hate crimes. Why is it important to know what those experiences might be beyond the workplace that are faced by our colleagues who are LGBTQ plus? What do you feel about that? Any views on why it's important for us to have a broader understanding? They are shocking stats, Heidi, absolutely. Shocking stats. I think it's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? Because we can often feel, well, it's all things are fine, it's okay now. But honestly, there's still some ways to go. Let's put this into context for those here who don't identify as LGBTQ plus. I would certainly want us to realize that we have a shared human experience. We've all experienced inclusion and exclusion in different situations. Just want to check the chat though, Dave. I feel my workplace is very accepting. Hearing outside events makes it more relevant. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Dave, for that. So we've all been labeled, haven't we? We've all been limited, underestimated in some way. I'm sure you can easily remember a time when you were directly or indirectly made to feel inadequate, not good enough, for whatever reason. We started by talking about insider outsider dynamics, belonging, exclusion. We've all felt it, we've all experienced it. And having looked at those statistics, let's consider where we are with regards to gender diverse identities. The rhetoric in the right wing media from our government within elements of social media has shifted focus from the 80s anti gay propaganda. And there's been such a disproportionate rise in negative reporting on trans issues, and often no invitation for those who have a trans lived experience to offer their insights on that. We've all got affinity bias. We all will gravitate towards people who are like ourselves, and it's sometimes easier to live within our bubble of lived experience, to not look beyond our own frame of reference through a different lens, to get those insights such as we're sharing today. And that those affinities mean that we'll favor some over others in personal and in professional life. So consider how this happens. We've got the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, as you know, is deliberate, rational, reasoned, logical thinking. The conscious mind being only 2% of our thinking and subsequent behaviors. The subconscious, on the other hand, is responsible for a much greater percentage of our behaviors. 98% of our thinking is the subconscious mind. The subconscious has absorbed every detail of our lived experience, from our parental figures to our siblings, peer groups, schooling, education, and so on, including the media, social media. That has informed us through the subconscious to have certain beliefs. We stereotype, we generalize, we act on intuition and instinct 98% of the time, much more than we give it credit for. So consider how that impacts upon language we use. Think about terms like man up, gendered expectations of language. What are we really saying when we are using terms like this? Who is impacted by it? There's often a fear of appearing to be gay. Even nowadays, there's often that fear of being too gay, too camp, whatever. And when we say man up, we're informing people of a certain level of masculinity or a certain type of masculinity. And the impact on that is very serious, because suicide is the biggest cause of death in men under the age of 50. And males under aged 45 to 49 have the highest suicide rate. Only 36% of referrals to the United Kingdom Health Service for talk therapy are from men. Only 36%. Consider the language that we're using. um, I'll we'll get to that question at the end, I'm sure. So in terms of those unintentional people preferences we have, those affinity biases, they affect our thoughts, our feelings, our actions in all aspects of our life. That means we will unintentionally often communicate people preferences through our words, whether written or spoken, through our language, our body language, our facial expression, even. But consider these concepts of inclusive language and communication in relation to gender identity and to sexuality. Avoiding blanket terms, that goes for any characteristic. Stereotyping, generalizing is not a healthy approach, but we can fall prey to that. Ideas of things being a normal kind of a voluntary choice, let's say, in terms of sexuality, gender identity, normalcy, assuming someone is straight, assuming someone is cisgender. We should be now recognizing diverse family formations. My husband was often asked when he worked in a hospital what his wife thought of him doing that job because he wore a wedding ring. Those things that we subconsciously might say to another, which immediately places our idea of normalcy on them. We can be inclusive of all relationships, all family formations, to not stereotype, to not limit, whether positive or negative. So many things that we might do unconsciously. If we get it wrong, I don't want us to not communicate. That's the danger of trying to not make mistakes. We tend not to then communicate. We can acknowledge our mistake. We can apologize for that, correct ourselves, do better next time. This Although today is about LGBTQ plus identities, I would like to say that regardless of what characteristic the topic might have been, all of those things still apply, to not generalize, to individualize our approach. It's about being, for me, an ally. Advocacy should be a shared responsibility, speaking up on behalf of others, not, speaking for them, but amplifying any concerns people may have. It's a shared responsibility in the workplace and beyond. We need allies, we need senior sponsors who can proactively influence the creation of a more consciously inclusive culture. So when an ally acts in support of another person, or community in the case of LGBTQ plus individuals, awareness, accepting, understanding, the celebration of difference is augmented if we articulate that across the entire workplace community, regardless of our personal beliefs. I should highlight, we may have our own beliefs, our own lived experience, all of those things we've absorbed into our subconscious. But to act upon that, should we have a bias against LGBTQ plus individuals? Should we act on that bias in the workplace? I would suggest no, but some still feel that it is okay to treat others unfavorably because of their gender identity and so on. Celebration of difference is so important. Thank you for putting that in the chat box. And I just want to check who said that because that's a great comment. Thank you, Heidi. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That is absolutely true. I think celebration is the key word there. So we can be active allies, not passive. It's okay to say I'm not homophobic, I'm not transphobic, but it has no real impact other than it makes you a nice person. Being an active ally means being anti-homophobia, anti-transphobia. So ultimately, to bring this almost to a close before we have some time for questions and conversation, there's a summary of some top tips here in regards to LGBTQ plus inclusion. It's about respecting names, knowing that each individual will know themselves better than we do. Respect the name, respect the pronoun, and acknowledge if we get it wrong, acknowledge the mistake, apologize, correct, do better. We can't all know everything about language and terminology. We may make mistakes. We may accidentally misgender someone. If we misgender and we're corrected, yet we do that again, we've gone from the subconscious into the conscious. That then becomes a deliberate choice. So that is conscious discrimination. So I would suggest that we can all learn, we can all grow, we can all be allies and support others to grow on their journey. Gender identity and gender expression are different. Bear in mind, there will be some who don't feel ready or comfortable to be open at work about their true gender identity. So we can be cautious around assuming gender, definitely calling out things like transphobia and homophobia. We can listen, we can learn, we can self-educate, often those from marginalized communities, and you may have experienced this yourself. We almost become the teachers for others. People come to you as if you are the font of all knowledge just because of a certain part of your identity. It's not just on the individuals. We can self-educate, look beyond your frame of reference, watch movies, watch documentaries, read books, read magazines, and be an ally, ultimately be an ally. I'm going to give you one task to do before we go to any questions and open conversation. In the chat box, how might you be an ally to LGBTQ plus colleagues or clients? What can you do? Or is there something you already do that you'd like to share with us in the chat box? How might you be an active ally to LGBTQ plus colleagues and clients? Or if you are LGBTQ plus yourself, what would you like people to be doing? Put your thoughts into the chat. Absolutely, yeah. Attend Pride events, keep learning, support the cause, make sure they're included in common. Absolutely. Nothing about us without us. The same goes for any characteristic, any marginalized voices. Treat everyone the same with respect. Absolutely. I mean, that's how it should be, of course, yes. And as good people, you know that. Provide a safe space for discussion. Thank you. Yeah, Rebecca, thank you. While the answers are coming in, Rebecca, what do you mean by that then? That psychologically safe space?
I was thinking that because I think a lot of people feel either afraid to speak up when they feel discriminated against, or perhaps if people have been misgendering or misusing language, that it's that classic thing of no one wants to sort of feel like they're the bad guy. So it's about making it known that a space can be safe for people to have these discussions, and facilitating that through through understanding and through sort of encouragement and all of that's what I meant.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's really hugely important, isn't it? To create that space. And, there's lots of reasons why people might be anxious or nervous about speaking up. And I guess we just need to develop the tools, the strategies to have courageous conversations. But it has to start, like you said, Rebecca, with the safe space there where people know that they can speak without judgment or criticism or consequence. Ultimately, thank you. And we've got educate here, develop understanding by talking. This is the thing, the talking part, getting to know people. I was very naive about trans identities maybe 10, 15 years ago until I started researching a book where I was interviewing a lot of trans people, and many have become my closest friends. And I've got such a deep understanding now of what their lived experience is. And when you put a face to a type of identity, in inverted commas, it humanizes people. It's very easy to label, stereotype, and disregard people as a whole group and not see the individuals. Thank you. And I'm reading the others that are coming in, but the last thing is, what could the organization do? Rebecca suggested one thing, but what could the organization do? Oh, Dave, that's great. Dave, can I ask you to expand on what you've said there rather than me try to mumble it? The meritocracy.
Sorry, just unmuting. On the meritocracy, basically everyone's got skills and capabilities. You should be recognised for what you can bring to the party, basically. And a good leader will truly draw that out of people. And when people see what people can do, their skills, their capabilities, and they get respected for their professional respect, and that's when teams form, and that's when teams excel. It's people. I'm really big on the workplace that we should employ the best people and everything else is just second fiddle. It doesn't matter what background you come from, who you are, whatever, as long as you can work with the team and deliver the best.
Thanks, Dave. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely. And I think, inclusive leadership plays the most important role in creating healthy teams. And I guess for me, the role of an inclusive leader is to be consciously aware of the subconscious behaviors amongst others. It's really hard to be consciously aware of your own subconscious. But as a leader, we've got to step it up that gear to know that there may be fractures within relationships within a team that are very small and subtle acts of exclusion going on, and how we keep an awareness of that. And yet, absolutely, it's best people to do whatever task is to be done. Thank you so much. These are great. Regular access to training we've got here. These are great. Time for some open discussion, some questions. So if I go back to Rebecca for that, I do hope there are some questions. Let's have a chat.
Absolutely. So I think the first question that we saw come in, and I think you noticed it, and said we'd come back to it. It's also, Dave again. Sorry, we're calling on Dave. You asked about the statistics, where David had got his statistics. Where did he get the data? A quick check on Google Scholar suggests a higher rate of detransitioning than being suggested. Did you want to expand on that, or David, do you just want to sort of, let us know your thoughts?
Oh, in terms of finding on the statistics, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
statistics are what they are. It depends who we've been using in certain research. That statistic, I believe, was from Transactual. It's an organization who I'd certainly recommend checking out. They've got lived experience stories, resources, all sorts of really useful things to develop our understanding. Yeah, statistically, the majority are happy with their transition. But certainly, I'm very skeptical of statistics. I only use ones from sources that I would trust, but definitely Transactual. Have a look at that. Thanks for sharing that in the chat, Rebecca. There are other organisations like Mermaids as well, which is more about younger trans people. I don't know if that answered your question, Dave, to be honest. Is there another question, Rebecca?
I haven't seen other questions coming in, but I might have missed them because obviously we've had a lot of chat coming in. I do just also want to kind of David, just say as well that it's data can obviously be sort of manipulated, and it can be very difficult to trust a source. And I think the fact that you have been working, and interviewing people and their lived experience matters so very, very, very much, because it's not just numbers pulled from who knows where and put into a certain format to back up a certain argument. Yours is about the experience that you've seen from people who've been through that. And I think that to me is a much more valuable sort of source of understanding and information.
Oh yes, and can I pick up on that? So there may be those who will physically or medically detransition, regardless of what that statistic is. But often the detransition doesn't mean they are no longer trans. It means that they don't feel safe, psychologically or physically safe necessarily, whether that's their family or the wider community, to present their trans identity. And people will regret not that they're trans necessarily, but they can't comfortably inhabit a world that is so anti who they happen to be, if that makes sense. So statistics and personal lived experiences really come into it hugely.
100%.
Yeah. Another question there, I think, from Dave.
Do you feel that remote working and interaction has made it harder to truly accept each other's differences, as it's just a temporary veneer when interacting?
Well, that's a good question. I do feel that remote working doesn't give us the opportunities necessarily to build more meaningful relationships necessarily with colleagues. We do need to have times when we're physically in a space with our colleagues. Some that might not be what they are able to do, and that is fine. We have to be flexible. to be inclusive. If you consider neurodivergent or disabled workers, it may just be that for them is the best thing. For others, I think those small micro interactions we have at work, just asking how you are, but genuinely wanting to know the answer, and bit by bit building relationships, really does enhance our understanding of others so much better. And it's better for the team, it's better for the business ultimately, isn't it? Thank you. Oh, and Paul, lies, and statistics, as the old say. I know. Take from it what you want.
David, I would like to know the research that you were doing, and I'm sorry if you mentioned this before, but what's the name of the publication that it all came out in? I'm very interested.
Oh my goodness. I'm so embarrassed to say it's been over a decade. I've been researching. I initially started interviewing people when I was in my 40s. Yeah, no, so, early 40s. It's called Never Blending, based on a quote by Harvey Milk, the supervisor of San Francisco, back in the 70s. Never Blending, and it's LGBTQ plus role models. I interviewed people like Stephen Fry, Alan Cumming, trying to think of females I've interviewed, a range of people across politics, activism, but all people from the workplace. When we talked about trans identities, one of the most inspiring people, and she's a very good friend now, is Lexi. Lexi is a trans woman who worked in a call center at that time. And she said, I don't know why you're interviewing me. I'm not important. And I said to her, because she knew I'd interviewed a lot of celebrities. And I said, but Lexi, you go into work every day and it's like a ripple on a pond. If you throw that pebble into the pond, everyone you interact with gets to know who you are, and the ripples go further and further out. It may well be that someone didn't understand what it was to be trans till they got to know you in the workplace. But they may then, in their friendship group or within their family, have a discussion about trans identities, and someone has something negative to say, yet that person you've met at work will then say, well, I know Lexi and this is Lexi's experience, and Lexi is a human being rather than just a label that we see in the media. So I said to Lexi that it's the real people living real lives, not the celebrities necessarily, who make a difference just by existing authentically. And we learn through osmosis that people are all the same deep down, and we all want the same things in life. So it's called Never Blending.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to look into. Oh, someone's shared it in the chat, in fact. Thank you,
Look at
Marcy.
you. Thank you, Marcella.
Yeah. Fabulous. Okay, well, I think it's now 9:27. So if there's a final question, please fire away. Otherwise, David, I cannot thank you enough. I think this has been just the most inspiring and interesting talk this morning, and real honor to host you. And just, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for hosting, and thanks everyone. Honestly, just playing along, doing the quiz. I know it's quite depressing statistics, all of that. It's quite a serious topic. However, we all have a part to play in just embracing and celebrating everyone, regardless of who they happen to be. So thank you for hosting me today.
Thank you so much. All right, and everyone, thank you for coming. And we will be sharing a recording of the talk as well after shortly. So but yes, all right then, David. Well, take care, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Good start to the day. Bye-bye.